Today I'm joined by Mr. Siddharth Chatterjee, who is the UN Resident Coordinator to China, and he has recently gone viral on Chinese and Indian social media for breathing in sub-zero temperatures. His photos and videos of doing yoga and pranayam in extremely cold temperatures in Beijing is doing the rounds, earning him the name of Snow Yogi. He also recently released his documentary called Breathing for Good Life, and just a few days ago did a workshop with Kung Fu trainees at Jackie Chan's Academy. And we are here to find out what led a diplomat of his standing to do breathing exercises in the middle of snow-covered Beijing. Welcome, Mr. Chatterjee, to the show. We saw your videos and it was very fascinating to see that somebody is just amidst this sub-zero temperature and practicing breathing exercises. What was the purpose behind it? Was it to fascinate people and have them then think about breathing and meditation more, or was the purpose to level up?
Well, both and many more. So it was to rekindle Asian societies, Chinese society, Indian society's interest in something which is very much part of our DNA, very much part of our cultural heritage. The whole aspect of Qigong in China or Pranayama in India have many similarities, and both of them are at the very foundation of good human health. Now, this was, of course, recognized thousands of years ago by philosophers, scholars, religious entities, and the practitioners of this who go up into the high mountains and practice meditation. But what is clearly understood by modern science today is the ability of the human being to manipulate the breath. When you can learn to manipulate the breath, you learn to manipulate your brain, because it's the brain that compels you to eat all kinds of junk food, be lazy, but the breath allows you to overcome all that. So it was a lot of those things, but I also wanted to show to people that how this convergence of cultures, which I'm doing on a frozen lake at sub-zero temperatures in China, has such a resonance with the heritage that both societies have evolved from. But what it has also done for me was to test myself and the boundaries I could go to, because I've been practicing this over the last 4 years. I have been exposing myself to cold conditions, but this was special. This was nearly -11 with a wind chill of nearly -16, and I found that I was quite comfortable even despite those conditions. It was initially cold, but gradually my body became like a combustion engine. So the aim was to tell people that we have an ability, that the human body has the ability to adapt to anything in this world despite how inclement the conditions are.
But what prompted this journey for you? Because I looked at some of your pictures from 2019 which you shared again from Kenya, and you looked like a completely different person then. Was it COVID? Because we hear different stories from COVID period. Some people started exercising and working out more, and others just indulged in everything they wanted to because it was such a stressful period.
Yeah.
What was the triggering moment for you?
Well, several things. I was overweight. I'd come to about 85 kilos. I was pre-diabetic. I had high cholesterol, so I was on 30 milligram cholesterol tablets for over 15 years. I had a general state of anxiety and lack of wellness. My blood pressure used to be at about 160 over 90. And this has been going on year after year while I was doing fine in my career. But despite the fact I used to keep myself physically quite fit, I used to be a regular half marathon runner, exercising, but I noticed that the indulgence in food, excessive sugar, all these things were taking a toll. And I suddenly realized that every year I used to fall sick with a flu or some kind of an illness. And I'd come to that point, January of 2020, I was on my way back from Washington, D.C. with a Kenyan delegation, and we'd had a very successful visit. And successful visits also come with a lots of wining and dining, and which is what had happened. And I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I basically could not recognize the person who I had become. Just physically completely altered, proliferating horizontally, not just at my face but at my waist too. So it was just something that made me feel very uncomfortable. And that was the first time I got onto a flight, an Emirates flight, I recall, to get to Nairobi via Dubai. I decided not to eat anything, and I came across this breath practitioner called Wim Hof. He's a Dutchman. And that's where this journey really got started, where I got very curious. I didn't eat in the plane at all, didn't have any breakfast, no lunch, came home and had dinner. And that was the first time I felt quite good not having eaten anything for a while. And it was actually in the beginning of March that I made this transition of practicing this breath work eating one meal a day, exercising, and putting myself into heat and cold exposure. And this journey is what has transformed me today. And by the way, my resting heart rate that time used to be at about 75. Today, my resting heart rate has dropped to less than 40. Sometimes it touches 36. Now, this is the resting heart rate of super athletes like Usain Bolt or Eliud Kipchoge. And what I've realized is that through this combination, you can bring your resting heart rate down. But the overall sense of well-being that I've achieved now does not parallel anything I've felt actually since the time I was as a young boy, that I've never felt this state of wellness. And I would add that COVID perhaps was the greatest teacher for us. Everywhere we saw the impact of COVID and the levels of mortality and morbidity that it left behind in the wake of it, left behind an economic crisis that rivals the Great Depression. For me, COVID became just that reminder that how important it is to invest in health and well-being. And here as a result, so over the last 4 years, I've not had COVID, I've not had a flu, and I've not fallen sick. And I'm in a state of well-being and wellness and fitness and strength, which does not match any part of my growing up years.
But you were also in special forces.
Right.
I would assume that during that period of your time also you were very focused on health, wellness, fitness especially, and discipline. So how would you differentiate that part of your life from now?
Let me give you an example. I used to be one of the best runners in my unit. Like I could outpace most people, by the time I was a captain in the army. However, I could do 50 push-ups and 15 pull-ups in about 3 minutes then. So I was considered very strong. And I used to execute a 21-kilometer run in about 1 hour, 35 minutes. Today, I do 100 push-ups and 50 pull-ups in 3 minutes. And I do a half marathon in 1 hour, 40 minutes. So in fact, I've actually got stronger, more flexible, and more dynamic and more energetic, particularly in the last 4 years. So in a sense, I've reversed aging in many ways.
I'm sure many people are going to have this question. It must not have been just breathing. You also mentioned other elements of fasting, different kinds of trainings and workouts. There are nutritionists who mention that you need to eat greens, you need to eat this. And then there's another set of people who say you need to exercise every muscle, you need to do this. Does fasting, like skipping breakfast and lunch, or like fasting for 5 days together, did it make any changes into like the nutritional deficiencies? Did you go to a doctor once and figure out like you don't have vitamin D, enough vitamin B or something?
Yes, I fast for 5 days, water only, every 6 months. 3 days, water only, every 3 months. And every day, water only, and I have one meal in the evening, which is my dinner. I have supplements like multivitamins and all that, so I have the necessary supplements. But it has dramatically improved my health. So it is not breathwork alone. Breathwork is foundational to it. It is like, it is like the ABCs of well-being. Breathwork also teaches you how to manipulate the brain, and therefore you are able to manipulate the autonomic nervous system, state of what is called hormesis or artificial stress, and that leads to many, it has anti-inflammatory properties, it has consequential properties in many things, including moving into a state of meditation. So, but breathwork is like going to a gym to build up your muscle. That's why we call it work. Breathwork is to build up your pulmonary capacity, your lung capacity, and your ability to kind of manipulate your brain or to activate the autonomic nervous system. But immediately after my breathwork, I do 10 minutes of high intensity interval training, which is a combination of push-ups, pull-ups, planks, a quick run on the spot. But it's not more than 10 minutes, but it ramps up my heart rate. So my heart rate from resting heart rate at 36 can go up to 170, and then it comes back down again. Immediately after that, I get to the gym, which is near my house, and I do 20 minutes of sauna, which is actually the ideal sweet spot, 20 minutes of sauna. And within the sauna, I also do a series of breathworks and some light exercises. And then I finish with a cold bath. Now, this is my regimen. This is what I do every day without fail. And twice in a month, I will run a 21 kilometer for 21 kilometers, just one run. I don't run every day. And this has kept me in the state of well-being and wellness. And as I said, because of this routine that I have, my brain sheds a huge amount of dopamine into my body. I have lots of nitric oxide in circulation. And the breathing exercise that I do is a combination of different types of breathing exercises. And therefore, it includes humming, so which leads to a huge amount of nitric oxide being discharged into the system. So there are several things I've started to do which I've found works for me. And I'm sharing that knowledge with whoever is interested in it.
Do you also have some specific breathing techniques that you would recommend to people, or just like learning about pranayama and doing pranayama?
I think pranayama is the basic level to start with, but then moving on to higher levels, which includes what you call intermittent hypoxia. Intermittent hypoxia is inhale holds, breath holds, and exhale breath holds, and those exhale breath holds can last from 10 seconds. I can take it up to about 4 minutes now with no air in my lungs. And it's fascinating of the things that happen inside your body because of that. But I would say that is to learn it. I learned it over YouTubes. I learned it over reading different books. And I think anybody can do it. It can be self-taught, but great if you can have a teacher who can help you on this journey with it too.
You talked about aging, and China, the country we are in today, has a population of 253 million elderly people. Some of them don't even feel like they have the energy to run or go jogging. So how would you suggest like they should approach these breathing techniques?
There is a demographic transition which is happening all over the world. You know, China, the Asian tigers, Europe, America, everywhere, and people are aging. The thing is, my philosophy is to spread the message that it is better to die young at a ripe old age than to die old at a young age. And I think what I've done over the last 4 years can be done by anybody without exception. It is a matter of applying a discipline to it. It is a matter of applying willpower to it. It is a matter of applying tenacity to it. And the thing is, it's not difficult. We are not asking you to become super athletes. It's simple things like breath work. You know, I do 10 minutes or 15 minutes of high intensity interval training, nothing more than that. I don't spend hours in a gym. The idea is to age, but age and still you can be strong and robust. Like today at 60, I'm doing many things that many 25, 30-year-olds can't do. And as per the doctors here, my biological age is the equivalent of a 30-year-old, and my heart age is that of a 20-year-old. Simply because I've been able to bring all those things which are age-related diseases and I've been able to reverse it. But then you have to, you have to stay committed to it. You have to stay disciplined to it, because that is the way, we would be able to progress. And it doesn't mean that aging means you have to become unfit. You can be absolutely fit, supremely fit in your 80s and 90s, be able to do precisely those things which people can do in their 20s and 30s. So it's to take away also the misnomer in our minds and challenge the orthodoxy about that aging means weakness. No, aging does not necessarily mean weakness. Aging can be one of monumental strength and well-being.
But many people say that the reason they are unable to go on this journey of health and wellness is because they never found that teacher, or they never found the mentor who could guide them in the right path. For you, what was that journey like? You must have researched on your own. You must have looked at other people who do meditation and yoga. What struck you the most?
Wim Hof was my starting point, but yes, I'm self-taught. So I would look at all the different teachings that were out there, but I started to research the science. I would look at what Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist at Stanford, wrote. I would read David Sinclair's literature on fasting, Rhonda Patrick's literature on sauna and heat exposure, Peter Atali. So I was looking at a range of authors and thinkers and influencers and scientists, and I looked at the science of all of this. And then, a simple thing like understanding the discovery of nitric oxide and how consequential it is. Nitric oxide was discovered in 1998 by 3 American doctors who got the Nobel Prize for it. Now, did you know that the nitric oxide is a signaling molecule for the cardiovascular system? It is a vasodilator. Nitric oxide keeps our blood pressure normal. It keeps us healthy and strong. And at the same time, it sits in our paranasal chambers and kills any virus and bacteria that comes in contact with it. But did you know that 70% of the world is mouth breathers? And if you're not a nose breather, you will never be able to take full advantage of the nitric oxide in your body. Now, when I say 70%, there is a small percentage, that is the 30% that are nasal breathers only. That group of people never fall sick because of the nitric oxide flow in their body. So what I did was I practiced running and exercise with a tape on my mouth, so I would not breathe through my mouth. So I've now become conditioned to breathing through my nose. So if you take a look at my picture from prior to 2020 to my face now, my jawline changed because of nasal breathing. And it really set me up, my energy levels, because of the regimen that I have, the dopamine effect in my body goes up, stays there for 16 to 17 hours. So I'm constantly in the state of high energy, well-being. And the fact is, that I don't eat any breakfast, I don't eat any lunch, and that saves me time and I can focus on many other things. And also the energy that is needed to digest my food is now the energy that I'm utilizing into my work. So it's quite fascinating how different things can actually come together. So the human body is like a pharmacy. It's got all the treatment within it. It's a matter of how we unlock that there. And so that was my awareness came through, a lot of reading, a lot of understanding of the literature, that how it could impact us. And this is what I'm sharing with other people. I feel that this is a purpose, given what I saw as a consequence of my work in the United Nations. I've worked in some of the most fragile parts of the world. Human health is something which causes so much of misery. It has an impact on your mental health, its impact on your emotional health, an impact on your spiritual health. Herodotus, the famous Greek philosopher, who said that, when health is absent, art cannot manifest, wisdom cannot reveal itself, wealth becomes useless, and strength cannot fight. It's really that, said in 260 BC. Today it's become so much more applicable. What we want is a society which can progress well. Fundamental to that progress is health. Fundamental to economic prosperity is health. And therefore it is the very foundation, it is the very anchor for even the success of the rest of the Sustainable Development Goals. So what I'm trying to do as the UN here is support China's efforts on the Healthy China 2030 initiative. China is got challenges like many other countries with diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, cancers. I believe all these things can be checked. You can be old, healthy and strong. You don't have to become weak because of these chronic diseases. I think it's an investment that we have to make collectively, and it's an all of society approach. It's not governments that can do it alone. It is individual responsibility towards their own health, their own well-being. And once they make that investment, families become healthier, communities become healthier, nations become healthier.
Coming from India, I see a lot of this in Indian society as well, in which the youth is becoming obese, struggling with a lot of diseases, especially cardiovascular diseases, fatty liver, and all these things, which are basically because of a sedentary lifestyle. As a UN diplomat, you also live a very busy lifestyle. So I'm trying to understand what are the things that people can incorporate into their daily lives without taking it to the extreme, because I think most people who just go to the office would like to have breakfast and lunch both, and would like to maybe incorporate 30 minutes of their time in doing exercises and breathing. So what would be your suggestion in incorporating something which would be more sustainable for the maximum number of people?
It takes 6 weeks of everyday practice to form a habit. That's how the brain can be programmed. The idea is to get started and easy. People go make a New Year resolution and go to a gym and say, they buy all the equipment, all the gear, go to the gym, do some hard workout. After 10 days, they say, okay, I'll miss it today. And then gradually they lose interest. To make something a habit, it should be easy. So even if they do a little bit of breath work, a little bit of exercise, like 1 minute of breath work, 1 minute of exercise, 1 minute of like getting into a cold shower and just letting the cold shower hit you for 4 or 5 seconds, but do it every day. We today eat too much and breathe too much. And one of the biggest challenges that China and India and the US and many parts of the world are confronted with is this chronic addiction to sugar. Now, sugar is poison. And let me state that very clearly. The refined sugar that is there in our processed foods, in our tea, in our desserts, etc., the long-term damage it is doing, we are setting our children up for failure, because the reward system of parents is to give sugar to their children, chocolates, ice creams, this form of indulgence. What does sugar do? The brain gives you a little bit of dopamine. So it's that feel-good factor. Then you will need more sugar, because like the law of diminishing returns in economics, you need more and more sugar till we start to proliferate horizontally because of this excess sugar, which is leading to diabetes, which is leading to hypertension, which is leading to different cancers. What does cancer thrive on? On sugar. So today there are oncologists, a guy called Pradeep Jamnadas, a famous cardiologist actually, who actually puts his patients on 7 to 10 days of fasting and finds that they don't actually have to do a surgery, because what does fasting do? It helps your body to go into a ketogenic state. There's a process called autophagy which happens. So now autophagy is called, in Greek, it means self-eating. So basically the brain since you're overriding the brain's instruction and not eating, it's really a fight over your brain. The brain then instructs the liver to give it energy, and that's when your body produces ketones and sends you this clean energy into your brain. And this is basically the fat cells which are floating around, which sit in your brain and cause Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases, or heart conditions, myocardial infarctions, where the arteries get clogged. Through fasting, you can not only reset your metabolism, but also do away with some of these reasons for chronic diseases. So I would say that if we can adopt a few practices, this is what is going to be very, very important in terms of the way we are seeing transformation. The costs of not doing much about it is going to be huge, because chronic diseases is the new tsunami which is waiting in the hinterlands. Already people across the world, there is more morbidity, more mortality because of chronic diseases. In China, the figure is at about 141 million, but we don't know about the numbers that are not diagnosed who have diabetes. Similarly, in India, there are about 78 to 80 million people with diabetes, but we don't know the numbers that have not been diagnosed. So these are things, I think human health should actually have the world collaborate around the sustainable development goals to see what can we do. And some of the best things that we could do is the prevention. Best things we could do is to look at certain basic changes that we have to adopt a more healthy lifestyle. So I wanted to do that myself. I can't be talking about SDG 3 or universal health coverage or staying fit if I myself was not fit. So I have to do what I preach.
Since this started as a personal mission about personal transformation for you, is it also part of the UN mission, or because it's part of your personal life and you're in this position, both things are just kind of intertwined?
They just blend into each other. And today, the Sustainable Development Goal number 3 is going to be the anchor for the success of the rest of the SDGs. So I'm really committed to it. A lot of our behavioral aspects come from bad health. Chronic diseases are one of the major contributors to our reaction to many situations. This whole thing of anger and constant state of stress is because it's related to what is called the sympathetic nervous system response. Sympathetic nervous system is our fight and flight response. And that sympathetic nervous system is what is causing a lot of violence on the streets, rage driving and all those kinds of things. We have to look at ways of keeping the body in the parasympathetic nervous system phase, which is the rest and digest. And that's what the breathing does. So we have the autonomic nervous system, which has the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. But we are constantly in the state of stress, and that stress is becoming chronic. We have to learn to take our bodies back into the parasympathetic nervous system state. And that allows us to calm down, take stock, allow reason, allow compassion, allow rationality to come into our ways rather than, knee-jerk reactions to situations. I've seen that change which has happened within myself too.
But are these activities more isolated, in which you do breathing on your own, yoga on your own, and have made these lifestyle changes just on your own? Or do you also share them with your family, or do group yogas, or do group projects in which you're sharing these things with others, but also practicing them with others so they can follow by example?
As a matter of fact, wherever I'm traveling in China, people ask me to give them lessons on it, and I have a full PowerPoint of lessons on this, and I really believe that this is the knowledge I can share with them, and we form group chats to keep them informed of what can be done. I would like to commend Prime Minister Modi for being able to have convinced the United Nations on the importance of yoga, and now we have an annual yoga day. And I may not have been practicing yoga before, but I've now been practicing pranayama, particularly the breath work, which I've combined with Chinese Qigong as well. So I'm doing a combination of all this, and like I said, I'm studying the literature from across the world, and I've realized how important it is for people to actually embrace a healthy lifestyle. And yoga is one of those healthy lifestyle approaches people can take, where people don't need a gym membership. They can do it as families, as communities, and it generates more friendships, more bonhomie. And I think this is very important. This is a direction that I feel the Sustainable Development Goal can give velocity to. Yoga, breathwork, our traditional practices here in China, traditional medicine in China and India, how much they can contribute to advancing human health, to advancing the sciences and behavioral sciences of preventative health. And there's so many things that can be benefited from this.
Because of the position you are in, you can spread out this UN mission to as many countries and as many people as possible. But do you think yoga has that foundational capability of uniting people towards improving global health?
Absolutely. I mean, we are seeing the consequence of that from the United States to Europe to here in China, all over the world. The spirit of yoga is catching up. And more importantly, I think what I'm trying to spread the message is, that pranayama, which is not exactly yoga, pranayama is really about breath work. Qigong is about breath work and the movement of the body. Bringing this combination together can have a huge effect. This is cultural diplomacy too. It brings cultures together on a common ground, with a shared history, with a shared culture. I believe these are things that can be so transformational in the way we perceive our environment, perceive the human body, but above all, perceive our societies.
Thank you so much for this informational and insightful interview. It was so nice to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Both India and China are major stakeholders in improving the global well-being. And as Mr. Chatterjee just mentioned, whether it is the pranayama or qigong, when combined together, it has the potential for improving the global health and taking us closer to fulfilling the SDG.